Innovative content. Global audience.
Yes, people. This is a great day. A great day indeed. When you see me excited, you know I am happy for a reason. Why is Daddy Chris happy today? Because I'm in the presence of greatness. On my right is Dr. Itebi. He's going to introduce himself. It's Tube.
Yes.
All right? Tube is a financial expert, a doctor, not the one you pick on the street. He's a doctor. He has well read, and he's an African. He might tell us where he's from in Africa. That will be up to him. But he's an African as much as I know him. And then my friend is Uncle Frank Kedija. You've seen him with me a couple of times. He's right here in London. And imagine me having these two people today in the studio. What a day. That's why I'm excited. And if you don't know, you're going to know. So listen carefully. Africa could be somewhere. Africa could be great. Africa have all the potential to be great. They say we have all it takes to be great. But why are we still where we are? It's disturbing. And before I go into that, just what we're going to look at today, what are our challenges? Without dwelling too much on the challenges, what do we need to catapult Africa to the orbit, where we need to be? That is where we are now. And that's the question everybody's asking. And I'm going to have these two people to talk to us. Because they have financial aspects, what are the things dragging us behind? We need to pull it out. But first, let's talk to Doctor. Let's talk to Frank. Let them introduce themselves again. Doctor, please tell my audience who you are.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Daddy Chris, for inviting us. It's a great pleasure to be here with Reverend Frank. And we very much look forward to the opportunity of throwing some color and some light on where we see the African continent going in terms of economic growth, poverty eradication, promoting integration across the continent of Africa, and really doing what needs to be done in order to promote the achievement of the goals of the African continental area, which are really focusing on poverty eradication, economic integration, and economic growth. What can we do to improve all of that? In terms of my background, I'm the founder of Srtv. Many people watching would be very much aware of that. And we are I was a portfolio manager. I ran a Luxembourg listed fund. I've been in the investment community for many years. And one of the things that I decided to do is dedicate a substantial part of my life, together with my colleagues and collaborators who are distributed all across the globe and particularly across all countries in Africa, to create the kind of ecosystem that can open up opportunities for real global access for the African people across the African continent to participate into the new global digital economy, to drive wealth creation and push down financial exclusion. That's our focus. And here, of course, we have Reverend Frank. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. It's my pleasure to sit here with you. It's a wonderful day to be here in the United Kingdom.
We don't see you always. Yes. We don't see you always in London.
I'm glad to be here visiting with families and my daughter's graduation this week. So it took the opportunity to come and visit with Daddy Chris, and I invited Dr. Itube to come with me because Dr. Itube is my partner here, the Srtv and Citadel Capital and iBrands and all the things that they are working and doing on behalf of for the benefit of the African continent. So I'm just glad to be here amongst this great thing this evening to talk about solution to financial inclusion of the African people and how best we can accelerate the progress that is already underway. So that is my opportunity today, and I'm glad to be here.
It looks as if we are on the same page. We seem to believe that we are on track. But before we push in this big story of that we're going to get there, perhaps I would like to know from these two experts here, because I call them the two wise men. Yeah, I have one on my right and one on my left, so I'm going to let them talk. And I'm going to ask really, why or how could Africa be lacking the basic things of life with all the resources we have? Who is our enemy here? Is it an enemy within or without? And I know we don't want to spend too much time on that. Perhaps if we can identify the problems, that is only when we can provide a true solution to it. What do you think, Doctor, is the true challenges we're going through as a people?
That's a very good question. And in fact, I think if we take a closer look at that, then you will realize that trade and exchange of value from one person to another, one business to another, actually underpins the process of wealth creation. And what we have in the continent of Africa is a financial services infrastructure that was put in place going back to the days of slavery and days of colonialism. And that infrastructure that was then positioned to serve just a small segment of society hasn't changed substantially to the point where it is inclusive. And so today we find ourselves at a time when up to 92% of the population in some countries in Africa are still excluded. And therefore financial exclusion actually is one of the main drivers of lack of access to the opportunities to participate in trade, not just trade between individuals in the same country, but intra-Africa trade and to participate in international trade. Without access to participate equitably in trade, we remove opportunity for many to participate in wealth creation. And I think that has to be the starting point of how do we address that, to give access.
Uncle Frank, let's put it from the layman point of view. I go to a bank in Nigeria, or in Cameroon, or in Mali, or in Egypt, and the rates, the rate is unbearable. There's no, it's suicidal. In Nigeria at the moment, it's 33%. In the UK, you can get, if you can get, the seven highest is 10%. No. Yeah, that is one of the exclusivity he's talking about. How do you, because of that?
Yeah, I think the system that he mentioned, where more than in some countries more than 90% are excluded, makes the running of the financial system very expensive, and so the small percentage have to fund the many. So what we are in a new digital age where what we call the age of democratization of money, where money now can, even with your cell phone, you can have access to money. We are now in a digital age. We are now in the age of technology.
Yes.
So people now can easily be integrated and be included in the financial system. I think when you have enough people participating, enough people asking tough questions, then it becomes easier for such solutions to the price of it to come down. It is something that has to be done, and something that a lot of people in the technology space are working hard to see. And we're pressing on the financial experts to make it easier for people to be integrated into the financial system, so we can reduce the cost of financing, reduce the cost of money, and make it more accessible even to the local peasants in the hinterland. So when you have the inclusion of everyone in the system, I think the price of money will come down.
That sounds really hopeful. I'm getting excited because I was thinking, this is not going to happen in my time. But from the way they're talking, it's like the button can just be switched on.
I think we are there. Technology has moved on so far.
Yeah, you talk about the digital economy.
And today we talk about the digital economy.
Yes.
We are in the process of ensuring that that kind of access can really be available to many. And of course, there are success stories. We've all heard of SA Kenya. The mobile operators across the continent are doing a tremendous job, which has to be applauded, in terms of providing access to many people, even though at the same time we're talking about exclusion. But the reality is that that is not the kind of financial services access that is needed to drive wealth creation and participation in global trade. Uh, what you find is that a lot of the mobile operators are limited in particular countries or particular jurisdictions, and they are not really in a position where they can deliver a kind of diverse access to financial services, which enables the participation of people beyond their immediate borders. Now, why is that important? It's important because today we have the benefit of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which really entails free movement of goods, services, and investment across the entire continent. There are 54 countries, over 1.4 billion people.
Yes.
And so we are talking about the kind of financial access ecosystem and infrastructure that can make it easy and possible for somebody in Nigeria to transact with somebody in Ghana and somebody in South Africa across the continent. And that's how we bring the transformation in our time.
And quite interesting to talk about this free trade, because what did China do? What did China do to explain this to me? You're the US. Happening today, mobile iPhone is literally made in China. What did they do? How did they manage to get that? We have more population. We can, in fact, for me, I'm sure America will want to do business with Africa than to do business with China. What is it that China has done right that we couldn't do in Africa?
Well, China focused eternally. They look inward and they analyze their environment and decided that human capital development was key. And so they focus, just like China and India, they focus on human capital development. The best resources of any nation is not their natural resources, but the human resources. You train them, you allow them to have a very high level of education, technical education, relevant curriculum development that brings out the best in their people. Africans are some of the most brilliant people in the world by scientific analysis. So Africans are very creative, given the right opportunity, given the right frame of reference, the right curriculum and education, they will excel. So we need to focus. Nations, great nations spend a lot of their budget on human capital development, and you need to develop science and technology because productivity comes from innovation, and that innovation comes from technological advancement. And so when we focus on technical training in this age of now AI, web three, technical education, in telecommunication, in human capital development, in computing, in AI and machine learning. Those kinds of technology that allows people to do quantum leap in their thinking and creativity, linking arms with research institutions. That is how China became what it is. And Africa can easily do the same thing. I think we need to focus more on human capital development. We should be able to see that right.
Yeah, Doctor.
Yes.
Yeah, because
That's
I was coming back to you on that. That's what we're going to do, because I believe, and I said to Doctor in the car that, hey, in the Bible, I was reading and I found out, oh, the children of Israel, they sold their brother Joseph. In the hard time, it was Joseph that come to save them. Are Africans ever going to come back? Doctor here, just in case you get it wrong, Doctor was already a lecturer at 26 in the United Kingdom, a lecturer at the University College here. We need him. What do we need to do to take him home? Because that's what Uncle Frank is telling us that. our human capital is what we need to grow the continent. And the pastor just said it right. That he said to those of us in diaspora, we don't need your money, we need your contact, we need your knowledge. Doctor, how do we tap on your expertise in the continent today? I mean, there are so many people. You are unique. You are unique. How do we tap on your expertise? What do you want Africa to be so that you can come and say, hey, I'm here to work?
That's a very important point, and I think one area that we can all work together to try and unlock a lot of value. Now, when you think of economic growth and input into economic activity, as Reverend Frank Ejija pointed out, you need human capital. That's number one. Now, we are at a time when not only is the continent at a point where, from the days of slavery, a lot of strong and fit and able bodies were taken out of the continent. And today they constitute what we call the diaspora. Now, at the same time, even to this day, we know that because of the challenging economic conditions on the ground, the aspiration of a lot of young people is actually to flee the continent and go out. So again, the continuation of the flight of human capital. So therefore, the point that you make about the story in the Bible and the return of Joseph as a savior to your people, it is actually a very important point that we cannot continue the brain drain. Because if we do, where is the human capital going to come from? From Africa, from Africans. And so I think it is important that that trend is reversed and that active steps are taken by governments across the continent to begin the process of reversing that trend, so that our experts abroad, all over the world, both those who have gone out voluntarily to seek greener pastures outside, and in the process, who have acquired great levels of expertise in different domains, and those who went out involuntarily and have, as a result, created further generations of Africans on our side. I think we need to have a constructive process to tackle that and bring them home. How do we do that? We obviously, people live for to access greater opportunities. We need to make sure that the conditions are right for them to return, and we need to take active steps in bringing them back.
Right.
And funny enough, they don't know to physically move back to Africa today for them to even work, because with the new technology, with the new world now, look at what you're doing. Three of you, I can see the passion in these two men. That's why I'm so happy tonight. Because I thought it would not happen in my time, but now when I saw the passion, the will, the desire to drive the continent to the next level, I can say it is burning. That's why I said they need to encourage you. What are the things you want to hear from the African leaders, or you want to see the move, the practical step on their, may not be physical, what are the kind of policies they need to put in place? You mentioned the free trade zone, which is quite something I think is wonderful. The Chinese were able to do that.
Following on from the same conversation when we talk about human capital, the other important input is, of course, finance. Okay. You need actual financial capital to inject into order to contribute towards economic growth. But the good news is that many people in the diaspora actually are contributing significantly already to the economic agenda on the continent. And just so you know, the contribution from remittances from the diaspora today actually exceeds and surpasses foreign direct investment in the continent. So that means that those in the diaspora are actually already making an economic contribution to the continent. What we need to do is leverage that and increase the pathways and the opportunity for that to be more impactful. The other area is really opening up opportunities to bring in the expertise that many of those in the diaspora have gathered over the years to begin to bring about meaningful contribution to the economic progress on the continent. And one of those areas that we are working on very actively is to ensure that we can work to introduce a common instrument that is both exchangeable, tradable, and instantly convertible into any currency within continental Africa, so that we can begin to solve those problems that plague exchange of value as we trade amongst ourselves. And by doing that, we expect that a substantial opportunity will be open for wealth creation like we have never seen before. And I have to add that our leaders across the continent have actually done a great job through the formation of an introduction of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which really paves the way as part of the regulatory framework to make this happen. What now needs to happen is that we need to operationalize that. We need to make sure that, just like the African Continental Free Trade Area enables or allows the free movement of people, investment, and money, that we actually have kind of matching infrastructure to ensure that that can happen.
That is a very important point you just made, that actually the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure and the capital infrastructure. The idea that Africans are scattered all over the world and they're expecting somebody else. We have to look critically. We have to be willing to make the sacrifices that are necessary. And only the Africans have the responsibility and the requirement to do so. You can't you cannot live in comfort in another man's land when your land is at waste. So we have to make this sacrifice. We know that there is a structure to drain Africa of resources. That structure has been in place over a long period of time, and we're suffering the consequences of this as it were. But we have to be wise enough to understand that our lives is not just our own, that we have to make some strategic, collaborative sacrifices and join hands with fellow Africans who have the desire to see the greater good of the people back at home. So everybody has to contribute and make certain amount of contribution by sacrifice. Don't forget where you come from. Start from where you come from and contribute. Link arms with those who are doing the same thing or who have the desire to want to do that. Some of us are doing just that and want to encourage more people to do so, because the development and industrialization, the advancement of our people, it rests on us. We know that there are incentives for us not to do that. We live in comfort in the West, but it's not a good comfort. We are not happy with that. So we have to be willing to make some sacrifices of ourselves to contribute to the development of our continent, of our people. So we need to lock arms in doing that. So it's a tall order, but it's something that we are responsible for. Let's not be blind to that.
Yeah, this is quite good. Doctor said we in the diaspora were already contributing quite a big sum of money.
Yeah.
But perhaps what would it be right to see that today what they need from us is not just money.
Yeah.
So what they need is investment, or maybe creative. This I say. If you ever want to keep sending £2,000 to your family, it's going to finish it. But if you make them useful by creating something and say, okay, you run it, this is business between me and you, run it so that we all benefit from it, perhaps that would be the only way we can get them to be participants, because they need to be responsible too. Those in Africa need to be responsible.
Yes.
They should be part of it. And if you just throw money, it's not making impact. You know how much we put in, like Rani said, how much we send to Africa on a daily basis. They come back the next month for more. But perhaps we should now change the narrative and say, okay, why don't you do this with me? We have land, they have farm, they can do a lot of this. I'm talking from the lowest point of view. Get them to work, and they work and they make the money with us.
Daddy Chris, the point you make there is extremely crucial and very important. And I'll give you a simple example. There is no lacking of skill and expertise on the continent in many ways. There are people who produce artifacts that vast and groups of people from around the world, when they visit the continent, they buy and bring back, only where they are there. Now imagine a world where somebody who is sitting in a remote village in Nigeria is able to produce something like that
Yes.
and sell to somebody in Canada or
Unique.
somebody in China, that's when we begin to bring the transformation in a way that is impacting their daily lives and giving them the opportunity to create wealth for themselves using the skills they have. But imagine that today we will not be able to do that if we don't have an accessible financial services infrastructure which can actually empower that individual in Nigeria or Ghana or South Africa to be able to access the global marketplace. That's why creating the infrastructure that is inclusive, accessible, instant, and that gives and empowers those everywhere to be able to participate in the global economy. That's part of the answer.
I agree.
But I would have to say something else. And that's something else I want to add is it's not enough to give somebody the opportunity for them to receive an order for something they produce from Canada or from the US, or what it is. We also need to ensure that the prerequisite infrastructure that is needed to empower them to deliver that item is there. And that's where investment in the physical infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure, will be the game changer. You asked earlier how China did it. No. And I used to teach development economics at some point in my career. Now, one of the things that was very clear is that no country has really ever achieved significant levels of development without a subsidized investment in particular sectors of the economy where the private sector doesn't feel that they will get a decent return for their money. And that's why government infrastructure financing and also infrastructure financing from benevolent participants within our economy, people like Reverend Frank, I know, for example, is very committed to the development effort on the continent as a whole, having the opportunity to bring his assets onto the continent, to have impact that it needs to have, and to drive investment in selected sectors of the economy is key. Because he will not necessarily be doing that because he wants a return for his money. He has plenty. But the point is, we need subsidized investment in particular sectors of the economy where private individuals that are solely interested in earning a return will not be able to deploy their capital.
Yeah, that sort of brings me back to what you said earlier, that it was about the high interest rate. See, with that kind of high interest rate, as it were, currently in the continent, especially places like Nigeria, where they are so proud that, oh, if you invest in Nigeria, you make 35%
Exactly.
annually. That's not necessarily, it's not very competitive. What you're saying by that kind of high return is you're saying that there's so much risk here that we're willing to cannibalize ourselves and pay through the nose for everything that we get from you. So we need to tone some of those things down and create the enabling environment, create the infrastructure, things like constant electricity, security, communication, access to high-speed internet. That makes productivity easier, food security. There's a lot of things that, especially a country with over 180 million people, there's so much potential.
300 million.
We have such potential that we need. To me, I returned from Nigeria about 2-3 weeks ago. When I looked at the landscape, I said Nigeria the whole place should be a construction site. There's a lot that is lacking, so there's a lot of opportunities there. But we need to take advantage of that because we can't continue to wait for somebody else to come and do it. We can't wait for China to come and do it. It's not their responsibility.
That's all.
We can't wait for Europe to come and do it.
No,
It's not their
it's
responsibility.
not.
We can't wait for America to come and it belongs to us. The task of development belongs to us, and we should be in a hurry to get that done.
We really should be now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that's why the next few minutes I'm gonna be on my name. I want to really know what they are up to at the moment, because I know Uncle Frank has NBC. Uncle Frank, I want you to talk to us about your company, what you're offering, and where you're going with it in terms of the Africa at the moment. Before I come to the
Well, it's in the desire to build capacity with those who are going the same direction. Because sometimes a tree cannot make a forest. Two trees can make a forest.
Yes.
Three trees can.
It's
So you have
big for us.
you have to
The trees.
plant a lot of trees, and so you have to wait for them to grow. So I've been planting over a long period of time, having partnership with people who can help. So now we're at the point where we need the financial institutions. We have the ability to capitalize and give them the size of the balance sheet that they need, so they can provide capital services, financial services to the community that they serve. And those are crucial elements, because some of the things that are done at high finance involves the balance sheet strength or the asset under management of this bank, their shareholders' capital. Those are the things they use to judge and rate them. Beside the economic activities of the various nations where they serve. I'm US based. My resources were gathered from the West in the US. My equities and investments that I've made over the years are within the United States and some periphery within the African countries. But now we're in a position where we can actually bring those assets into the balance sheets of the African financial institutions, so they can have the kind of strength that they need to be able to compete. Because there's a lot of discrimination on the basis of your strength, because they judge you by the size of your balance sheet, asset under management, shareholders' capital, and the participation of what kind of customer base that you deal with. Well, we are in a global economy. Nothing stops an African institution from participating in the New York Stock Exchange or in the London Stock Exchange or the Hong Kong or Frankfurt Stock Exchange. So if we gather our strength, we can gain the momentum that we need to attack the global capital market, and we have the balance sheet in US dollar or convertible to euro or to any other currency to be able to help them accomplish just that. So we need to lock arms together with those who are going the same direction. That are already licensed in the space, already have the understanding of what these things are, but they may not have the balance sheet to do it, so we can help them in that regard.
So that's what NBC is doing.
Yes, that's what NBC is doing.
That's very important that we, and I'm gonna come back to Frank quickly on that before we go. So, Doctor, what do you need at the moment in the journey? What do you need to be able to achieve this for us in the country? What do you need from us? What do you need from our government? What do you need from our institutions?
They need to be bold about taking financial engineering very seriously. They need to be bold about taking capital formation very seriously. They need to be bold about doing what they need to do for the benefit of their industries. They need to provide access to capital to their customers. And in most cases, because of the size of their holdings of their balance sheet, they're sort of timid, because if all you have is 100 million, you cannot lend 100 million to any one customer. You are limited to do that. But if you have such a vast balance sheet, then you can take more risk. Their problem is they are limited by the kind of risk that they're able to take, because their balance sheet will not allow them to do so, and the constraints of the regulations that under which they operate on their framework reference will not allow them to do so. So people like myself and NBC Fund able to come in and help to remove that risk by helping them underwrite the risk.
Amazing. So we're gonna come back to that. So, doctor, I know you know the good thing is when you have it, you can't keep it. You know, money cannot hide. You know, there's something I said. If you have money, you use it for something. Either you will spend it a lot on clothes, spend it a lot on food, spend it on houses, on cars. Money will say. So the talent is there. I know it's not gonna be. It's not kept somewhere. Tell us what you do at the moment. Business-wise. You mentioned it briefly, but I don't want
Yes,
to.
as I mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of Srtv platform, and it's the idea behind Srtv is really to create access to a global community where people can exchange value in real time, irrespective of where they are, so that we are building that financial services ecosystem infrastructure that really can deliver the kind of access that we're talking about, that can reduce financial experience from 92% down to 0, where everybody is included. It's a tall order. It might sound difficult, but we have developed ways to achieve that. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention, which is critically important, is that we talk about the very high interest rates on the continent, and there is a slight paradox in the sense that sometimes the high interest rates are brought in to bear on businesses and individuals as a way of fighting inflation. But the problem on the continent is not inflation. I mean, it's not that inflation is high, it's that we don't have adequate productive capacity to deliver products and services that money needs. So what tends to happen then is that a lot of money is chasing small products with fewer goods and services that are producing in the economy. And instead of providing access to capital to businesses to increase productive capacity, then the central banks are increasing interest rates to try and fight inflation. In Africa, that is the wrong thing to do.
Say that, because this is very good. This is a mechanic.
Yeah,
Mechanic is interesting.
that construct,
Yes.
that playbook, it's not based on the African economy, it's based on
Western
the
economies.
Western economy. You can't use the same prescription that works for the UK or the EU or United States to solve the problem in continental Africa. But that's exactly what they do.
That's what's happening.
Because the central banks are controlled not from the nations, but from Washington D.C. and from London. So that's a problem all by itself.
So Danny Chris, let me just sort of put this in context.
Okay.
If you are in the UK and you have a mortgage,
Yes.
and you have a car that you
Finance.
use to finance, it means that when interest rates go up, the amount of money that is left in your pocket after paying your mortgage and your car and all other insurance products that you have will be less. And because that amount of money is now less, it means you go and spend less in the real economy. And because you spend less in the real economy, there is less money running after the goods and services that are available in the market. That's what drives inflation down.
Okay.
So
Amazing.
the financial institutions and the financial system in the West, where they have a deep financial system that impacts every household, they use interest rate instrument as a way of controlling inflation within the economy. Now, when you go to Nigeria or any other country for that matter within the continent, where 92% of people don't have access to financial services, that increase. You can increase interest rates all day.
No,
It will not touch. It will not touch 92% of the population. And then what happens? Because the central banks have increased interest rates, the banks feel they need to propagate the same interest rate that have been given as a toll order from the central bank, and they increase their own interest rates. Knowing that, in fact, when they do that, they are harming and prohibiting access to capital to the businesses
Yeah.
that need that capital to
So what-
increase productive capacity in the economy. And that's why I said it's a paradox. It will never work in the continental Africa until such time that we have a financial system that actually impacts every household and therefore impacts their spending habits when interest rates in the real economy move.
Yeah, in that light, most of the houses in the continent, they are not financed.
Yes.
They are owned.
Yes.
So there are no mortgages.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is a major source of
Yes.
of of, of which is impactful when we talk about interest rate. We don't have car loans.
No.
We don't finance
Nothing-
a lot of
it doesn't work. It
things.
doesn't work there. Yes.
So when you increase the interest rate,
Yes.
it doesn't really affect the homeowners
Yes.
because they already own their home.
Yes.
We don't take 30-year
So that will affect
mortgages,
businesses.
25-year mortgages.
Yes.
The house out, the equity is locked up. All those equities sitting down in their property in a developed economy, they will assess those equities and use it to grow their businesses, and that frees up the capital that is required. So there's a lot of money locked up in equities at homes and real estate in Africa. All those big mansions you see, all those
Yes.
they are paid for. There are no
Yes.
mortgages. So increasing and controlling using interest rates as a tool of control is of no effect.
It doesn't affect,
No
it doesn't affect the ordinary person.
No.
It only affect the businessman who needs the
Who
money
needs the money to grow?
to grow.
Yes, it reduces the capacity for ordinary businesses that need money to grow to access that capital. It makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
So in effect, that damages the economy,
Yeah.
creates unemployment,
Yeah.
and exacerbates.
That's a wrong
increases
prescription, from the West against because it's not supposed to be like that.
Yes. Because maybe they don't understand our
They don't.
system. They don't
No,
understand
they
that we
don't.
don't live on loan.
They don't.
We don't
We don't live on loans.
Yes, we don't have
We don't
mortgages.
live. We don't need finance.
It's gonna give you money to buy a car
Okay.
in Africa. We don't want to live loan to buy a car.
Okay.
You have to buy your own car and you pay cash, or you don't have it.
Yeah.
So if you increase your rate, it doesn't affect those people. The rate actually affects those who need the money to go and build something.
So that brings me back to the question that he asked in
Yes.
terms of what I do.
Yes.
Okay, and of course I mentioned Srtv.
Yes.
And why is it so important that we focus our attention on inclusive access for all? Because by doing that, we begin the process of creating an alternative financial services ecosystem that impacts every household. And with that, you begin to develop the tools that can enable the national governments and policymakers to actually use other instruments to begin to effect money flow within, thereby creating the opportunities for more stable pricing environment that limits inflation and allows productive capacity to actually increase within the economy. But most important, now tie that to the opportunity that ecosystem presents to participate in the global marketplace, irrespective whether you are in a small village in Nigeria or Ghana or South Africa. We believe that is one of the most important opportunities to unlock real value creation and participation in the real economy in the continent, while taking advantage of the common market, the African continental free trade area. So we are very lucky to be alive at this particular point in time, because one of the greatest world creation opportunities that the African continent has seen is going to be as a result of that single large market, the African continent.
Yeah, talking about that.
It was coming back. Yes. It's coming back.
The world is definitely moving toward the continent of Africa because that's where the population is. That's where development is. That's where growth opportunities are. The West have plateaued. China is doing its thing. So you see China interest in the continent. But we shouldn't. We should be the ones that are there on the ground
To welcome them.
To
and
welcome
say,
them.
To say this is what we want.
That's
This,
right.
This
That's
way
right.
you
And
prepare
not
to.
and not
No, you
allow
can't.
them to come and do the same thing that the West has done over the last 300-400 years. So we can't abandon our own legacy, our own continent, our own land for other people to come and take over. So that is a very crucial thing. And that's why I, I will advise and advocate for Africans to take more active interest in the economic development of the continent because we cannot abandon our own space for others to come and develop. Because if you allow that to happen, if you allow that to come and take precedence, then that takes
They have their
the
interest.
rug
They have
under
their
the feet.
interest.
Yes.
This is come there for to come and help you, no?
No.
They have a mission. They have
Yeah.
they have a purpose, and that is not going to be always beyond
In your best interest.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Anyway, like
happy.
I said, I'm happy. I'm happy because I can see hope. I can see that we have a hope. Like Dr. said, we're lucky to be alive at this time.
Yeah.
The question is how do we take advantage of it? I'm going to look at issue of food security with these two experts. Africa, food, because one of the which is a shame really that there's still food insecurity in a continent that has so much landscape, so much. I think we should be exporting food, organic food to the rest of the world, but we don't have it. Again, can we take politics out of this? Can we take leadership out of this? Because how can we drive this without the right leaders in place? I know you gentlemen have been very careful, you've been nice to our leaders, but how can we achieve most of this without the right leadership in place? So you can see, and I'm going to throw bomb now, in Cameroon, for the past years, the president has been in France. He lives in France. I think he's dead.
No.
I should say congratulations to them because I don't know how you're going to be able to help the continent, help your country if you live in France. And at that age, again, we come back to Nigeria. If all the young people, all the disabled young men, we have been Tinubu as president. I have nothing against him, but I think age is a factor, especially when you see what the African need today. Food insecurity and leadership. How does this help us in our time? In driving to the new Africa. I want to call it the new Africa because that's what we can see. We can see the new Africa. We can see how it's supposed to be. We can look, we've seen it, but we just going to pick it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a very simplistic way of looking at food security, and that would be, I'll put it very simply, that if you cannot feed yourself, and somebody else has to feed you for you to stay alive, then your life is controlled inevitably by them.
Yes,
and so I think that goes without saying that food security has to be one of the greatest and most prioritized aspects of economic life on the continent. We have vast land that is arable, that can produce enough food to feed the nation and export, can feed the continent and export enough to the rest of the world. But instead, the reverse seems to be the case, that we are importing food from outside. And so you are right. I mean, we obviously cannot take politics out of that, and we cannot take leadership out of that. And you don't need to look very far. If you look at the transformation that is now taking place in Burkina Faso, then you would say that, well, leadership obviously has a great role to play there. If you look at the transformation that may be started there, Dubai today is a destination that many people go there and they think they can actually recreate the experience of some of some of what we have on the continent of Africa. Well, leadership has everything to do with that. If you look at the fact that Nigeria has oil, and so does Saudi Arabia, and so does other countries that are blessed with substantial amounts of natural resources. And then you look at the economic progress of Nigeria, resources, then you cannot exclude the impact of leadership, good governance, adequate management of financial resources, putting the priority of your people first. First, we cannot exclude that as one of the contributing factors. So we couldn't be kind enough to say that that is something that can be taken off the table. No, we cannot, because we will be pretending to ourselves if we do that. We just need to look at comparables. Why Saudi Arabia is significantly better than Nigeria, when in fact they do have more, perhaps Nigeria has more, and Nigeria has had oil for a long time.
We have so much land, more than Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Why we can do more, we can diversify, we have more to offer than Saudi. And yes, but they're better than us. So.
Yeah, it's rather, discouraging and unfortunate that the structures that we're operating was not put in place by us. We have constant interference. There are those who want to leave us where we are and make it difficult for us to. So there's manipulation, definitely. So we have to work twice as hard to find ways to make the system work for the benefit of the people. And we have to do that in most cases outside the government, because the government is not helping. So we have to create the public-private partnership. We have to take it above the current system. It's difficult, but it's not undoable, and we are doing it. And so we're going through a period of time where those things have to be managed strategically, and it's happening. The people, the grassroots of the people, have to be up to the task and be proactive. You can't wait. It's not a one-off battle. It's a consistent fight to see that the people who are in leadership do the right thing as much as possible, and help the people in spite of the government. People like myself at this point, I don't care who's necessarily in government. It's painful that my choice may not be the one in government, but it's not going to stop me from wanting to help the people.
Yeah.
So helping the economy, helping the people is what my main concern is, not those who are on top of the political space, who do as much as possible to advise them and try to help them accomplish as much as they can while they are there, because you see they are not there all the time.
That's true.
So they're working for when they are there, and sometimes because of the fear that they may never have this opportunity again, they sort of do all kinds of nonsense, which is not, in most cases, in the best interest of their countries and the economy.
Yeah.
So we have to deal with that.
We have to deal with that. Then, Chris, I wanted to add an important point when it comes to food security. Because on the one hand, we have very large farming communities across many countries. And so it's not the fact that there is a lack of bodies and a lack of people or a lack of land for people to farm. But what has happened over many years is that the farming has been relegated to a subsistence level, where you go and you only produce the amount that is needed to feed your family on a day-to-day basis. But we have to look at the fundamental reason why that is like that. I have been a witness to many communities where farmers produce, say, bananas, for example, and bananas have a lifespan, and they take them to market with the hope of selling them to earn income, to pay school fees, pay hospital bills, pay insurance, and all of that. Now, if they don't sell at the time that they bring that to market, then they become damaged. And therefore, it would be almost irresponsible to ask that farmer to produce even more and more and more and more when we haven't laid down the infrastructure that will enable that farmer to take that produce to market. So, or even transform it to a finished product. So investment in transformative industries in agriculture is extremely important. Investment in farm-to-market routes and necessary infrastructure that can enable us to exchange what we produce for other things or for money and all of that is extremely important.
Yeah.
We can't ignore that. So we cannot sit in a vacuum and talk about the extent, the amount of land that is available and the numbers of people that are effectively there in the rural communities that are willing, able, and ready to work the land and produce what we need to feed the nations without talking about the infrastructure to support those farmers to get the products to market.
Yeah.
Now, what happens in other countries around the world, the UK included, and many other countries, including the United States, is that they have what they call subsidies that are given to farmers to encourage farmers to produce in large scale.
Yes.
One, to make sure that they are producing enough to feed the nation, and two, that the farmers are not susceptible to food that is produced cheaply from elsewhere and brought into the country. That would make it impossible or difficult for the local farmers to actually compete and survive.
Yeah.
So we cannot separate those, and we cannot work in isolation. So provision of subsidies to farmers, provision of right and adequate infrastructure to get the produced items to market, investment in the transformative industries in order to make sure that we are adding value to what we produce, so that that can be used locally and exported to earn foreign revenue into other countries, are all very important.
Yeah.
And we need to look at them together and not just in isolation.
Thank you. Well, we cannot, this show was coming to the end of it, and I just wonders. I thought I was going to keep this, but I'm running out of time, so I'm going to bring it in quickly. Because the founding fathers of this continent, Africa, they met well. They met well when they sat down at the point in time and they said, oh, there's need for us to come together. And when I was growing up, the first thing they taught us the Organization of African Unity, OAU, OAU, that's what we're taught. Yes. And growing up now, I found out that some of our founding fathers were actually keen on saying, no, we need a better structure, not this Organization of African Unity. We needed a true unity of the continent where we are one, because what we had was it divided us in Berlin and Cameroon, Nigeria, Togo, Ghana. We were one. So we needed something that would put us together as a strong nation, as one strong nation. I cannot go back to that. The young boy makes the movie say walking backwards. Can go on backward about that. But now, what I saw that was lacking in that OAU was the economic liberation of the country. They were able to free themselves politically. Countries got independent. Our people became president. We now have people like us in the offices of the president. But what was lacking, what is still lacking today, is the economic liberation of the African country. I think the AU, the transformation of the OAU to the AU have tried to address that. But is that enough? How do we embrace Africa economically?
That's like the elephant in the room, right? and quite frankly, I think this would not have been, we wouldn't have done this debate or conversation justice if we didn't touch on that. So thank you so much, Daddy Chris, for bringing that. It is true that, of course, the continent was divided back in 1884 through the Berlin Conference, where in fact there wasn't a single African at the table to make that decision. And today we find ourselves being defined as Nigerians, Cameroonians, Ghanaians, South Africans.
Unfortunately, we can change that.
No, we can. We're going to change that.
If we can, we'll be good.
We have been born into that.
Yes.
But at the same time, through independence and the creation of the respective political systems in different countries, this have remained divisive and not necessarily united. And one of the things that we have, even though we have the African Union today, what we need is not just a political union where we have a leader for 2 years or so, where the time they have in office is actually not enough to create any economic impact,
Exactly.
let alone transform the levels of poverty that are going on across the continent. So I think there is need for strong will, for greater political integration and greater economic integration. Now, the economic integration will come about by being able to have unified systems for trading across the continent. The African continental free trade has gone some way to addressing that, but there are still some things that are lacking, and that is the financial services infrastructure to enable free movement of goods and services across the continent. That we need to crack. That is an important point that will tip the balance between enabling ordinary individuals in Nigeria to trade freely with those in Ghana, South Africa, Sierra Leone, and all of that, so that we can unlock the ability for Africa to trade for itself and for their people to really begin to participate in the economic prosperity of the country. That's when true economic integration will come.
And that's when the true independence
That's
will
when
come.
true independence.
Remember, that's the independence we're waiting for. It's not the political independence, planting me there. It's liberating us economically from where we are.
And empowering every individual to be able to participate in the real economy and contribute towards a productive economic output.
Well, this things took time to form the structure that we know it as it works there. It's going to take us some time to get out of it. But when the colonial masters came, they did not come there to improve the continent. They came there to exploit. So it's an exploitative relationship. Everything they did was for their own self-interest. If there was anything that they did to benefit the people, it's incidental to them accomplishing what they needed to accomplish. So when they went to shave our head in the conference in Berlin without our presence, it wasn't for our own benefit. It was for their own benefit. So they left the structure because of the agitation from people wanting independence. A lot of African fathers died in the process of agitating for independence. So they say, okay, we're going to give independence. But they give them political independence, but they retain economic independence. That economic independence is what we have not been able to extract from them because they've created structures in place that even now we're speaking English language.
Exactly.
You know, we're speaking their language.
Exactly.
We're not speaking an African language. We're not speaking Swahili. We're not speaking Yoruba. We're not speaking Hausa. We're not speaking Urobo or where any of that. We're speaking their language. So this thing took a long period of time, but we still have to learn where we are now in the scheme of things and be able to do what we need to do despite that, because China has been able to do that. India has been able to do that. So we have to be united one way. Africa is the prize for the rest of the world. The desire to disorganize Africa has always been there because our pain is their gain. As they pain us, it is sweet them.
We can himself. We can sing it well.
Yeah.
You know?
As they pain us, it is sweet them. As they sweet them, it is pain us. So we have to extract ourselves. We have to be aware of that. First of all, you have to be aware of that. So when you're aware of that, you know what you're dealing with. So, well, we cannot allow it to sweeten forever. We cannot allow it to pain us forever. So it's our responsibility to make it sweet us, make it painless.
Exactly. They don't have a choice. So, and that's what we're going to do. Yes, people, that's what we're going to wrap this show. I'm so proud, I'm so privileged to be in the midst of greatness today. We may not be able to do all today. This is going to continue. Unfortunately, Frank will be flying. Unfortunately, he'll be back to stay. But I'm going to put him on the show like this. Dr. today is with me here. So I'm going to be cracking on his brain. Well, and we're so privileged because we have life with him. We have him. And with all the financial understanding to drive the continent, we need to just listen. We need to listen to them. It's not like you have Joseph. You need to listen. We can't disobey Joseph at this point. African leaders, we can't disobey Joseph at this point. We can't disobey them. And our leaders can't disobey Joseph. People of Africa can't disobey Joseph. These people have a lot to offer And I can thank you. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time to be put back. Thank you. And please don't be tired. I know you're going to be things that will push you away. I say, oh, I'm tired of these people. Please don't. This is a divine movement. Keep it up.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Daddy
you,
Chris.
thank you, Daddy Chris. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yes, it's a pleasure. So, yes, that's what we're going to call it a wrap for today. We're going to have more of this, like I said. And just to wrap it up, just know that Africa, yes, at a point in time, our forefathers were taken away as slaves. They came to colonize us, but those times are gone now. We managed to get independence. But the independence today is the political independence. It is time to fight for the economic liberation of the country, not the political one. That's what we're saying. And we need to do that in a friendly way, by all means necessary by commerce. But we can do this by ourselves. If they support us, fine. If they don't, like Uncle said, whether I pay us, whether I like it or not, we have to do. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you for watching. The next time, when we come your way again, don't forget, when you see these two faces, listen. That's what I mean. God bless you. And God bless.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
SR